This is month 4 of playing one game per month. You know, when I was a kid, every other game that I played was magical and it was something to really get immersed into. I have a hard time doing that nowadays, and that is why I'm doing this year. If you want to learn more about it, go ahead and watch this video here. The link will also be in the description. But without further ado, let's talk about Metal Gear from somebody who knows nothing about the games.
You're there, you're right there.
That's that shit. I need to get up and walk around for a second before I keep trying, cause... And that is very true. I knew nothing about these games going into this. I knew that the games were insanely popular, and while I don't understand it, I know that this community has made some of the funniest shit I have ever seen.
I'm trying to sneak around, but I'm dummy thick. And the clap of my ass cheeks keeps alerting the guards.
That's not all though. I know that these games mean a lot to a lot of people, including my spirit animal, Streaking Jonathan.
I am Stealth Man.
Not to mention one of my closest friends who goes by Video Games. This shit became his whole personality for months, and it was actually very fun to watch. But I feel like I'm in a weird spot because over the course of this month, I learned about myself that there's a lot about these games that I'm actually nostalgic for. But how can that happen when you've never played these games before? Well, I figured out that that is because of YouTube. I, like many of you, watch YouTube all the time. I have been doing it since I was a child.
Yes! I am invincible!
It is my preferred brain rot platform, and I'm thinking back like as young as like 9, 10, I was preferring to watch phase montages over Kyle XY with my family on ABC Family.
Oh my god.
Apparently not all forms of greetings are appropriate.
Yo, that show was crazy. People who watched it, you know, but like by the end, I've never seen a show just jump the shark so many times so consistently. But because my childhood was spent watching this art, made by people who were inspired by this art, I kind of feel like I was visiting an old friend. And that's up to me to decide how real these feelings are. You know, having never played the games, am I really entitled to any kind of nostalgia? I mean, shit, I don't know. That's for my therapist to figure out. I just wanted to bring it up because that feeling is a driving factor behind why I chose this game to be a part of my list of games this year. Well, that, and it came up multiple times when I was telling my friends about this little challenge thing that I'm doing. This game got recommended to me by 3 different people from 3 different areas of my life. And that's got to mean something, right? I mean, I think so. And once I started picking up and playing this game, I kind of realized that they were onto something. Bold take, but I think the game's pretty good. I know, sue me. Now my friends are actually hearing that right now and cocking their heads a little bit because I spent this entire month complaining about this game. So I made the decision to play the original PS1 game emulated on my PC. And there are many versions of this game to be emulated, including like the GameCube one, and I definitely feel like I chose wrong. Like I feel like some quality of life updates would have been welcome. Because I have slowly learned this month that I do not have the patience for the jank of generations past. Look, I play a lot of video games, but I am not good at video games. And something that I've done a very good job at keeping from you guys over the course of this month is that no matter what is happening, no matter who is talking, even in single player games, I cannot sit still. For example, if there is ever any in-engine cutscene where somebody is talking to me, an NPC is talking to me, there's an exposition dump, I am running in circles, I am jumping, I am going batshit crazy. I'll still be listening, like I'll still like get the story and I'm still processing what the character is telling me, but my monkey brain gotta go burr sometimes, and that's just like, hey, when the gameplay feels good, gameplay will be had. So when they stop all gameplay to show this black and green screen of just 2 people talking, and I am kicking my feet like a child excited to learn more about the story, I think that's saying a lot. Now, the extent of what I knew about this game going into it is as follows. It is a stealth game that defined the stealth genre. Solid Snake is in Smash Bros. And that's it. That is the perfect scenario to go into a game like this. Halfway through the game, however, I decided that I knew enough about what type of game it is, so I went online to learn more about the game's director, Hideo Kojima. This is something I knew I wanted to do at some point this month because people seem to really like him and look at him like a visionary in the industry. My perception of him, however, was not so positive. Because I didn't know anything about him or his games when I was watching the rollout of Death Stranding, all I saw was yet another dude walking around saying that he was going to create a new genre of game. So at the time, I mentally lumped him in with Todd Howard and Sean Murray, bigwig execs that are touting a game that most assuredly won't hold a candle to the astronomical claims that they were making. It's actually somewhat humorous to me that Todd Howard's quote dream game that he had been dreaming about making for 25 years in Starfield, Sean Murray's infinitely playable in scale universe simulation game in No Man's Sky, and Kojima's new genre creating game in Death Stranding have all been described as walking simulators. Anyways, now that I have filled myself in on all the information around him, like the split from Konami.
Mr. Kojima had every intention of being with us tonight, but unfortunately he was informed by a lawyer representing Konami just recently that he would not be allowed to travel to tonight's awards ceremony to accept any awards. He's still under an employment contract, and it's disappointing, and it's inconceivable to me that an artist like Hideo would not be allowed to come here and celebrate with his peers.
The actual creation of a new genre in the stealth genre, and the more positive reception from people who actually played Death Stranding about the game. These things have made me more hip to why people like him so much. Even myself having an anecdote about one of his creations and not even knowing it. I loved PT. I still to this day think it's a perfect horror experience, and it is the pinnacle of what's possible within this medium. Made by Kojima Productions under a pseudonym. What the hell? If it seems like I have a hint of criticism in my tone, even when speaking of his accomplishments, it's because there is. That's by design. Everything I've written for this video until this point was before the tipping point of this month, where I started to research the guy more in depth. I've given you all of the Wikipedia information and surface level Googleable things. However, halfway through this month, when faced with the genuinely impressive experience that is Metal Gear Solid, I realized something. This guy didn't set out to create a new game genre. He was trying to create a cinematic, movie-like experience and write layered and nuanced stories to be told through a medium that wasn't there yet. This guy knew what he wanted to do before his industry could even be in the planning stages of executing it. In an interview from 1997, he talks about how the very first Metal Gear games looked like this. Because his vision for a 3D game with cinematic camera movement and genuine character acting couldn't be done on the hardware of the time. That's why it took him almost a decade to, one might say, reboot the franchise, because he didn't feel it could be done justice quite yet. I'm paraphrasing right now, but he does talk about the polygon rendering speed of the PlayStation 1, which we are so far beyond polygons even coming up in conversation around gaming, but he was counting down the years until a system could look like this. Now, this interview is a translation by Shmuplations, but the original interview was conducted by Famitsu Weekly magazine just before the release of this game. The translation is linked in the description if you would like to go see it for yourself. This, however, is not the moment I talked about earlier. This was not the moment that I realized I had infinite respect for this person. Reading this interview, however, was what made me invested enough to wonder about his inspirations. After all, this type of creative mind doesn't just spring up out of nowhere, so I started to look a little deeper. I read more interviews, I looked at some other game rollouts, some of the PR that he was a part of. I won't bore you with any of those details, because the inflection point for my month was when I picked up his book. My goal in trying to find out what makes Hideo Kojima tick creatively quickly revealed itself to be a very tall order. He's written so much over his many decades on this planet, and I wasn't exactly wanting to read every tweet he's ever tweeted to find some of the art pieces that inspired him. Thankfully, it's like he saw me coming. His book, The Creative Gene, is exactly what I was looking for. It is a collection of articles, texts, and testimonies on the various pieces of art that have stuck with him throughout the years. It includes revelations about himself, such as his view of women largely being informed by a story about a cat, which also happens to accidentally later in life be a subconsciously driving inspiration behind the boss in MGS3.
In Metal Gear Solid 3, the boss confronts the player character Snake, a stray dog, with a choice. Will you live as a dog, or will you live as a cat? Subconsciously, I must have been inspired for her character by Jenny. The Metal Gear Solid series had been the story of patricide committed by mercenaries who belonged to an organization, in other words, dogs of war. I created the boss, a mother cat, to bring in the viewpoint of motherhood and stray cats. MGS3 was born from Jenny's meme.
These insights feel like a goldmine to me and has caused this man to skyrocket towards the top of my favorite artists list. It really doesn't happen often when an artist hits me so hard so quickly. I got 4 days into research and realized that I knew more about this guy than I ever expected to, and I don't think I would want it any other way. Okay, dude, all this bookworm nerd shit is cool, but what about the game itself, bro? I hear you. Let's talk about Metal Gear. This game being judged on its own merits reveals an insane level of storytelling. If I'm looking at the game for what it is in its own time, I don't think you could find me a more influential piece of gaming media. That is a viewpoint that I am afforded by hindsight though, and with hindsight reveals some ugly truths about the game. Gameplay being the main thing that I'm griping on here. I would hesitantly recommend someone play this game if they knew what they were getting into. It's got clunky PS1 controls like some of the older games from that time, and if you're somebody like me who plays pretty much exclusively like well-controlling, fast-paced, number go up, flash as many lights in my reptilian brain as you can, I don't think this game's really going to be for you. Asterisk for this, by the way, like I said, I played the PS1 emulated version. If the GameCube version or the current Trilogy version that's sold on Steam fixes any gameplay issues and gives any quality of life stuff, my stance on this would absolutely 100% change. I say all this to say, if you have not played this game and you're passively interested in the story, trying to play this game with modern sensibilities and like the definition of what a modern game is, I think it might turn you off of the story and the game altogether. What I would probably recommend is just watching all of the cutscenes and the codec conversations on YouTube and picking up the franchise somewhere later down the line once you kind of align your stories there. For example, before playing this, I had a couple people tell me like, hey, you should just play MGS3. Like, get the cutscenes and the information from MGS 1 and 2, but just go to 3. Now, if you were my IRL friend now, that's kind of what I would recommend to you. I would definitely just kind of watch it on YouTube. Okay, but let's talk about some more specifics. The art style is trying realistic graphics before the tech is quite there, and I find it to be rather endearing nowadays. Maybe that's just the world I grew up in, the nostalgia circles I find myself in, but weirdly enough, I find that there's a little more nuance to this generation's game graphics. It seems that there are two camps to how people feel about the graphics of this generation. Either you look at these graphics and think that they are genuinely bad, and that gaming had a moment of weakness here as many games were moving to 3D, and most of them, even to this day, hit a lot of speed bumps in that transition. Or, on the flip side, you think that these graphics are charming and timeless and inform an aesthetic that you value. I find myself more in the latter camp. I do think it's fine to not like these graphics at the same time though. I mean, I won't exactly be heartbroken if I never play a game with this graphic fidelity again. However, I think this entire conversation is somewhat flawed. We shouldn't be looking at this as a then versus now situation. Let me elaborate. This stuff has grown over time. Look at it like the ship of Theseus. If you're unfamiliar, basically, you have a ship. Over time, you replace the wood planks that make up the ship one at a time. You take all the old pieces and assemble another exact replica of the ship. Which one is the original ship? That is the thought experiment side of it. What I more so want to hone in on is that the game industry doesn't get a new generation and then all of the culture and games of the past generation just cease to exist. These graphics and aesthetics are deeply ingrained into gaming as a culture, and people who are making games right now were playing games with these graphics when they were younger. That tends to show in modern sensibilities even now. For example, I have been hooked on this God simulator where you get to play God for an entire civilization and a universe. It's called Nubby's Number Factory. This game came out this year and it looks like this. This aesthetic doesn't come from nowhere. There's heritage and ideas behind this aesthetic. I guess what I'm trying to say here is we don't get today's fidelity without starting somewhere and rolling with what already exists. Our ship of Theseus is video games, and to look at the ship made up of our old pieces as lesser is an inherently flawed outlook. But there are aspects of the graphics to this game that are conducive to some of the theming around its characters. Like Snake not really having eyes and just a shadow over his face really fits with the moodiness of his character. And Mero got them cubes that are required, baby. You know what I'm saying, bro? God damn. I can almost convince myself that it's squishy.
Oh my god, bro.
That was dumb. That was stupid. Why? There is minimal visual clutter. It makes things easy to see. It's really easy to tell what is going on. Something that got harder to pull off as graphics got more and more realistic. For example, look at the PS3 era of games. Like, hot damn, that's a lot of brown. Another thing that I am a sucker for, and you probably are a sucker for as well, are good NPCs. Specifically the voice lines. Dude, I have been walking around my life going, what was that noise? For the last 3 weeks straight. I think my coworkers hate me. Adjacent to that though is just the overall sound design of the game. I think it is very good for its time. I mean, the alerted guard sound effect hasn't worked its way into the social zeitgeist for no reason. The music that plays during this is baller, dude. Like, it's something that any gamer I think could recognize whether or not they've played the game. You know how you can tell a good character design just by its silhouette? I think this is similar for video game OSTs. For example, I could play you this song, and you know immediately that it's from Halo, whether you've played Halo or not. Or this one. And again, you know immediately that it is Zelda. Not just the music though, the overall sound design does such a good job at just delivering this sense of urgency to the player. Like, sound design is so hard because there is no rules, right? The fact that somebody somewhere started from scratch with just an idea and came out with this is just fascinating to me. Like, in his book, Kojima talks about how he wanted Metal Gear to feel a little bit like a horror game, and I think in that, the sound design carries just as much weight as the gameplay does. I think what I'm most consistently in awe of here is just the overall attention to detail. From the sound design, to character design, to cinematic camera movements, and the fluidity between all of it, it just makes a very nice cohesive final package. I know I said some not so nice things about this game, and while I still wouldn't recommend somebody like me who doesn't have the patience for jank plays it, I wouldn't put too much weight in that if I were you. I'm just a dude on the internet. If you want to play a game, play it. There is nothing stopping you, because at the end of the day, I loved this game, headaches and all. Either way, Kojima's the GOAT. I will be playing through the rest of his games in due time. In the meantime, play more games, and I'm gonna go play Nubby's Number Factory now. See you next time. If you are one of the rock stars that made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I know this video was kind of all over the place, but there's only so much I can do with 3 weeks and some change. This is definitely the first video in this challenge that I wish I had more time to make. Like, I would have loved to make like a fully researched, more structured video about like the story of the game or more of Kojima's inspirations. Sorry if this video didn't cover as much about the game or the story as you would have hoped. I got a lot of pleasure out of learning about the artists behind the games, and these are games that anybody can go play, so you can absolutely go play them yourselves too. This is also one of those games that, like, the less you know about the story, the better. So like a Bomb Rush Cyberpunk story breakdown style video that I did last month, it was just kind of off the table. When the story is so meticulously crafted to be experienced through the medium of video games, I feel like I would be undermining it if I spilled all of the beans about the story here. I would still reluctantly recommend watching it through YouTube if you absolutely wanted to, because at the end of the day, even how Kojima looks at it is like, this is a medium to tell a story, so the story is above everything else. If you just want to experience the story, that is a valid way to do it, and I think I would rather have people experience the story than not. Okay, one last little update here. I'm moving next month, so the video/game will be a lot shorter. The idea of trying to play a 40-hour game and trying to pack and move into a new space just sounds awful, so I'm not gonna put myself through that. Okay, thank you again for watching. Play more video games. These are the ones that I'm playing right now, and I'll see you in the next one. See you next month.